lipstick on a collar, a hidden phone buzzing in the night, a confrontation in a parking lot. But that's not how it happened for me. For me, it was much quieter and much harder to deny. It started with the gym membership. David had never been a gym guy. He jogged occasionally, mostly for stress, but one Monday morning he mentioned casually over coffee that he was signing up at a boutique fitness studio a guy from work recommended. I blinked, smiled, and said something like, "Wow, fancy." He laughed. That was it. But then he started going 4-5 times a week, sometimes twice a day, early in the morning before the kids were up, late at night after we'd put them to bed. And that wasn't the only thing. His wardrobe shifted, subtle at first. A couple of new button-downs I hadn't seen before, a cologne I didn't recognize, muskier than the clean scents he used to like. I asked about it once. He said he'd grabbed something on sale. He also became more protective of his phone, always face down, always locked. That alone wouldn't have raised red flags 5 years ago, but now, it didn't sit right. He'd smirk at his screen and type quickly. I asked who it was once. He said it was a meme from a colleague. Showed me. It was nothing. But his smile didn't reach his eyes. I told myself I was imagining things. That's what women are taught to do, isn't it? To doubt our instincts if they aren't backed by something concrete. We're taught that suspicion without proof is paranoia. That feeling uneasy isn't enough. That if you can't explain it, you must be wrong. But I wasn't wrong. The distance between us grew in strange ways. He was still kind, still polite, still did the dishes after dinner, still picked up Clara from ballet on Wednesdays, but something invisible had shifted, a lack of presence. He wasn't in the room even when he was sitting right next to me. He didn't touch me anymore, not like he used to, not with intention. The quick pecks on the cheek remained, the hand on my shoulder as he walked past, but intimacy, real engaged connection, gone. I tried to initiate it one night, candles, wine, a dress he once said he loved, and he said he was tired, and then he turned over and went to sleep. I lay awake for hours staring at the ceiling, feeling foolish. The next morning I watched him get dressed and thought, if you're lying to me, you're very good at it. Still, I said nothing. I started walking more. Long, looping walks after the kids left for school. I'd leave my phone at home and let my feet wander. I'd stare into other people's windows. Not in a creepy way, but just long enough to catch little domestic moments. A woman drying her hair in the kitchen, a kid practicing piano, a man trimming a hedge. It made me wonder how many lives looked perfect from the outside and felt hollow on the inside. Eventually, I started journaling again. I hadn't done it in years, but it helped. Writing gave shape to the fog I was in. It helped me see patterns. I'd scribble things like, he was short with me when I asked about his schedule, or smelled like perfume again, not mine. It sounds small, but when you write those things day after day, they start to collect weight. One night, after he fell asleep, I tiptoed into the living room and opened his laptop. It was impulsive, the kind of thing I told myself I'd never do. I'd always prided myself on being above snooping, on trusting until proven otherwise. But I was tired of feeling like I was standing on a rug that someone was slowly pulling out from under me. I didn't go looking for anything specific, but his email was open. And there it was, a message near the top, from someone named Ava. No last name, just Ava. Subject: same time tomorrow? I didn't open it right away. My hands were trembling too badly. I stared at the screen, hoping, praying that it was innocent, that she was a colleague, that it was about a project, that I was wrong. But when I clicked, the message was short. Casual. Flirtatious. Can't stop thinking about last night. Still wearing that cologne you like, you ruined me, you know that? No context, no room for interpretation. My vision blurred. My stomach turned so fast I thought I might throw up. There were other emails, dozens of them. Buried threads, some deleted but recovered in the trash folder. Flirty. Explicit. Some dated weeks, even months back. Mentions of hotels, lunches, gifts. The worst part? One of them included a photo. Her face was blurry, clearly taken in a rush. But she was young, pretty, smiling. Wearing a tight black dress I could never pull off anymore, not after 2 kids and a decade of putting everyone else first. I closed the laptop, sat there in the dark, listening to him snore from the bedroom. And I felt nothing. No tears, no screams, no immediate urge to confront him. Just silence, cold and exacting. It was the kind of silence that settles deep in your chest, that lets you know something has ended, even if the rest of the world hasn't realized it yet. That night, I didn't sleep, but I did something else. I started planning. When I say I started planning, I don't mean revenge. I mean survival. I woke up the next morning before David, as usual. I made coffee, folded the laundry, packed lunches for the kids. I kissed Matthew on the forehead when he grumbled about math class, reminded Clara not to forget her water bottle. I played my part like I always had, down to the soft smile and the "have a good day" at the door. David didn't notice anything different. He never looked me in the eye that morning, and I didn't push him to, because by then, I knew I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to throw things. I wasn't going to beg or accuse or fall apart. I was going to watch, record, prepare. I wasn't going to give him the luxury of knowing what I knew. Not yet. So over the next few days, I copied every message, every email. I took screenshots, sent them to a private email I created just for this. I backed up everything on a flash drive I buried in a box of old Christmas decorations in the garage, a place I knew David would never look. I booked a consultation with a divorce attorney under the name Anne, my middle name. I said I was inquiring for a friend. I asked every question you could think of. What were my rights? What to expect with the house, custody, finances? The lawyer was kind, efficient. She said, "It's good you're being strategic. That tells me you're thinking long-term." I nodded, though the words made my throat ache, because here's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't break your heart in one clean crack. It shatters you in layers. First comes disbelief, then humiliation, then anger. Then the slow, quiet grief of realizing that someone you loved simply opted out. Not with honesty, not with courage, but with secrecy and small, cowardly steps. Each morning, I went through the motions. Each night, I waited until he was asleep before pulling out the laptop again. The affair was still ongoing, I could tell by the tone of the messages. She still thought she had him. Maybe she did. But what neither of them knew was that I had already let him go. Not officially, not yet. But inside me, something had been severed, clean and final. It was Clara's 8th birthday that made me snap. We'd planned a little backyard party, just family, a few neighbours, cupcakes and balloons. I did all the decorating, the baking, the invites. David was supposed to handle the gift, something we'd agreed on. A simple pink bike with a basket. Nothing too big. She had picked it out months ago. But the day of the party, David came home empty-handed. Said traffic was bad, said he forgot. He forgot his daughter's birthday present. And then, I saw the text on his watch as he leaned over the kitchen counter. It lit up, and there it was. "Miss you already. Still thinking about this morning." I didn't even flinch. I didn't gasp. I just stared at it like it was a fly on the wall. Later that night, after everyone had gone and Clara had gone to bed, I asked him plainly, "Do you love her?" He froze. His face changed, not with shame, but panic. "What are you talking about?" I tilted my head. "Don't lie, David, please, not tonight." He sat down, slowly, swallowed. His mouth opened, then closed. Finally, he said, "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." I laughed. It burst out of me like steam from a crack in the earth. It was the ugliest, most exhausted sound I've ever made. He said something else. I don't even remember what. Something about being confused, about needing space, about feeling lost in the routine of our marriage. I asked one question. "Did you ever think about what this would do to me?" He didn't answer, just looked at the floor. That was the moment I realized he wasn't a monster. He was just small, so very disappointingly small. That made it easier in a way. I told him I wanted a separation, that I'd already consulted a lawyer, that I had evidence, that I wasn't going to scream or burn his things or tell the kids he was the villain, but that we were done, and that he was leaving the house. He asked if we could talk again in the morning. I told him no, and I meant it. The next day, I handed him a printed list of his belongings and a suitcase I had already packed. He moved into a 2-bedroom apartment near his office, said it was temporary. I didn't respond, because some endings don't need closure. They just need dignity, and I intended to leave with mine. The first morning after David moved out, the house felt too quiet. Not peaceful, not empty, just too quiet. Like the kind of silence that doesn't soothe, the kind that presses down on your chest and follows you room to room whispering, something is missing. And something was. But not just a person. It was the illusion of safety, the comfort of routine, the false belief that love, if carefully maintained, couldn't just disappear. I made coffee that morning with hands that shook. I forgot to add sugar. I took one sip and spit it out, then cried like the taste had betrayed me too. It wasn't about the coffee, of course. It was about everything, about how I'd spent years pouring myself into a life that had quietly begun erasing me. I didn't tell many people, just my sister, a close friend, and my boss. Everyone was kind, supportive, but you could feel the undertone of shock, the same kind I had when I first saw Ava's name on that email. David? No way. He always seemed so solid. Yeah, that's the thing about men like David. They do seem solid. On the outside. They pay bills, mow lawns, remember anniversaries. They laugh with your kids and drive your sick dog to the vet and make you feel like things are fine. Right up until they're not. I spent nights in my bathtub with the door locked, candles flickering, holding onto the edge of the tub like it was the only solid thing in the world. I played the same songs over and over. Not sad ones, weirdly. Angry ones. Female singers with venom in their voices. Something about that rage made me feel less alone. Grief comes in waves, they say, but no one tells you some waves come with teeth. I missed him, and I hated him. I remembered our first vacation and how he held my hand on the balcony. And I wanted to smash my phone against the wall for daring to keep that photo. I thought about how he used to tuck Clara in and kiss her forehead, and I wanted to scream until the windows cracked. But most of all, I missed the version of myself I used to be with him, before the lies, before the knowing. The woman who believed in their future, who felt chosen. And still, I kept going. I got the kids into therapy. I started going too. Not because I was falling apart, I didn't have that luxury, but because I needed somewhere to say the things I couldn't say out loud, like, what if I'm never able to trust again? What if he never really loved me at all? What if it's my fault for letting things get so distant? And my therapist said something I'll never forget. She said, distance doesn't create betrayal. Dishonesty does. You didn't break your marriage by being tired or human or overwhelmed. He broke it by leaving without leaving. That line rewired something in me. It gave me permission to stop blaming myself for someone else's cowardice. Months passed. I got stronger. I started lifting weights at a gym I used to be too intimidated to walk into. I stopped wearing the perfume David once said he loved. I cut my hair shorter than I ever had before. And Clara said, "Mom, you look like a superhero." I smiled at that. But here's the twist I didn't expect. David started unraveling. First, it was small things. He forgot to pick the kids up one Friday. Claimed he mixed up the schedule, but Matthew said he smelled like whiskey. Then it was a call from his HR department. They needed documentation for the divorce proceedings, said he'd been missing deadlines, showing up late. Then I heard he and Ava had broken up. I didn't ask how, I didn't care. But the way he looked the next time he dropped off the kids said enough. Disheveled, hollow-eyed, like someone who woke up and realized the fantasy had rotted from the inside. He tried to talk to me once, in the driveway. Said things like, "I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were always the best thing in my life." And I listened, not out of kindness but out of curiosity, Because what does a man look like when he finally sees the wreckage he created? He looks like David. Hands in his pockets, words falling flat, standing in front of the woman he underestimated, hoping to rewind time. But I didn't owe him closure. So I said only this. You didn't lose me because you made a mistake. You lost me because you made a choice, and you made it over and over. He looked down, said, I regret everything. I nodded. That's the difference between us. I regret nothing. And I meant it, because I'd found something through all of this, a version of myself that didn't live in his shadow anymore, a woman who could stand in her pain and not break, a woman he would never ever deserve again. And I could see it in his face. He finally knew that too. After that conversation in the driveway, David didn't try again. Not really. He'd text sometimes, things like, can we talk? Or, I miss what we had. But I never responded, not out of cruelty, but because I was done bleeding energy into someone who mistook my kindness for weakness. The man who once knew every part of me, the way I took my coffee, how I hummed when I concentrated, which side of the bed I could never fall asleep without chillin had become a stranger. And the woman he left behind, she became someone he couldn't even stand next to without feeling small. I didn't need to scream at him. I didn't need to wish him ill. Because life was doing something better. It was holding up a mirror. One night, about 6 months later, I was standing at the sink washing dishes when I saw his name pop up on my phone. I almost ignored it, but then I saw the preview. Please read this. I need to say it. I dried my hands, opened it. It was a long message. No begging, no excuses, just raw honesty. Or at least the closest version of it he'd ever managed. He told me Ava left him. That she'd gotten bored once the fantasy faded, that she'd never really wanted a partner, just an escape. He said he was in therapy now, that the kids looked at him differently and it killed him, that the house felt cold and his friends weren't really friends. And then he wrote this line. I thought I was walking towards something better, but I only ended up in the ruins of what I destroyed. I read that sentence twice, not because it moved me, but because it proved what I already knew. David hadn't just lost me, he lost the life we built, the woman who loved him deeply and without conditions, the home filled with laughter and lazy Sunday breakfasts, the trust he would never again find, no matter how many younger, prettier women he chased. He had traded it all for a mirage. And the moment he reached for it, it vanished. The next day, I saw him at Matthew's soccer game. He stood by himself, sipping coffee, wearing a jacket I bought him years ago that hung a little looser now. He looked older, tired, not physically, spiritually, like a man who knew exactly what he'd thrown away and finally understood the cost. He looked over at me once. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I just turned back to the game. And that, right there, was my power. Not revenge, not public humiliation. Just peace. That's the part no one talks about. How peace can be louder than rage. How silence, when chosen, can echo in someone's bones louder than any argument. I didn't need David to crumble to feel healed, because I was already rebuilding, and this time I wasn't making a home for someone else to feel safe in while I stood at the edges, unloved and unnoticed. I was building a life where I came first, where my kids saw their mother not as a woman broken by betrayal, but as someone who stood up, held her ground, and showed them what self-respect looks like. A few months ago, Clara asked me, Mum, are you happy? I paused, thought about it, really thought. And then I said, I'm more than happy. I'm free. She smiled, then went back to her homework like I'd just told her something obvious. But to me, it wasn't obvious. Not for a long time. Now, it's everything. I got promoted at work, started traveling again, took the kids on a beach trip where I laughed so hard at dinner I actually snorted and didn't care who heard. I went on a few dates, nothing serious, nothing perfect, but I wasn't looking to be rescued. I was whole. And David? He's still in that apartment, still trying to stitch together a life from the pieces he didn't think he'd ever lose, still carrying the weight of choices made in shadows. I don't hate him. Honestly, I pity him. Because I got the one thing he'll never get back. Not from me, not from anyone else. A second chance at myself. And that's the kind of justice no apology can ever undo.